So, appearance for bands, so I don't know, what's your idea, aesthetics in groups, the way they look?
Well, at some point in the 90s, 96, I suddenly thought, this is ridiculous. Bands are dressing in cagoules, wind cheaters, and kind of trainers to face an audience, and it suddenly hit me as being slovenly, you know, kind of disgusting. And since that day I haven't really worn trainers, unless it's just to sprint to the shop and back.
Yeah.
I thought, you know, Hendrix and all that were wearing these beautiful high-heeled purple Chelsea boots, suede, and was dealing with fuzz pedals and wah-wahs and all that, and backflips and flames.
Yeah.
And now all we do is kind of slop onto the stage in trainers, and I kind of thought it was insulting to an audience. But then I realised that performing in a leather sole can be quite tricky at times if you're not used to it.
It's slippery.
Yeah.
Well, that's my theory about that rock and roll is kind of like horror and humor, you know. Because a good band is sort of grotesque to look at. You know, there's something grotesque, but then there's something funny. What do you think of that?
Well, I think these. There's been a few shows where I thought, God, you know, could get physically hurt, and then they're pretty, and they stand out as being amazing. I mean, the sound fills out in my memory. The sound is perfect, and there's violence and sweat and people look insane and scared. And that's pretty. Huh?
The fear.
Yeah. I mean, my first show, which was in Berlin, was the Osmonds, and that was when I was about, that was in 1974, I think.
Was that terrifying?
No.
Crazy horses?
Yeah, well, that's quite scary.
Pretty scary stuff.
But I mean, at the time when you're young, you know, these things translate into this kind of imagery in your head that it isn't literal, is it? It's kind of, because the imagery in my head when I was young, what was I listening? I was listening, like, say, Strawberry Fields Forever or Tomorrow Never Knows. But my imagery of, like, Tomorrow Never Knows was the Beatles dressed as cowboys on a raft going down a river that had a lot of rapids and with birds flying around and arrows coming from Native Americans. You know, that sort of sound. There's all these kind of tape.
Like Apocalypse Now.
Squiggly sounds.
With the Beatles in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. But a bit more of a kind of... but fir trees, you know.
That's funny because Vietnam was... everybody knew, people learned in America that it was wrong to drop all these bombs on these people. And the ruling class in America had to determine, well, how are we going to, go to war again? And the way they did it was through these films, where they kind of sold soldiers as rock stars. They took like MASH, to me, that movie MASH is like, look, the soldiers are like rock and roll dudes, and then it became a series. And then Apocalypse Now is very much like that too.
It's like The Doors, isn't it? It's like
the purple haze and there.
But that bit where he's is actually real, isn't it? When Martin Sheen is in his room and he's cut himself and he's in his underpants and he's kind of like acting all weird. And he's really out of it, and it's kind of like, well, it's Jim Morrison, isn't it? Yeah,
because before that, the dichotomy was, you can be a fabulous furry freak or you can be a jarhead, like John Wayne. So Apocalypse Now recasts the soldiers as heroic rockers, and that's how they figured out how to get people back into war.
Yeah, because that would be the opposite with here, where it'd be hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, up we go again into the skies, and that's much more alluring to me.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you.
You too.
And thank you all for coming, and thank you to the ICA.